Welcome to the Embodiment Matters podcast with me, Erin Giesemann Rabke, and my husband, Carl Rabke. Embodiment Matters is an ongoing, rich conversation about what it really means to be embodied and why and how embodiment matters so much in our daily lives and in our modern world. You can find out more about our wonderful guests, about our work. You can sign up for our newsletter and find out how to become a supporting member of our podcast online at embodimentmatters.com. In this episode, I have a great conversation with Robert Bosnak, who is a world-renowned Jungian psychoanalyst and the pioneer of embodied imagination. He's written many books, and you can find out more about him and an upcoming course he's teaching called Going Out of Your Mind, Get Into Your Intelligent Body and Become More Resilient, online at jungplatform.com. It's Jung platform.com. We have a great conversation exploring a lot of interesting angles about embodiment. And toward the end of the conversation, I invited Robert to actually guide us in a short process so we can have a taste of what he is talking about. And it's very cool and really worth hanging in there through till the end of the conversation. So I hope you enjoy. If you're interested in taking Robert Bosnak's course on the Jung platform, you can enter the code HAPPY and receive a 10% discount as a listener of our podcast. So welcome, Robert. I'm so delighted to talk to you and have this conversation today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Such a pleasure. I usually like to start these interviews with this question that could be perhaps the entire conversation, but we'll just see what comes in the beginning, which is, How do you define embodiment?
I define embodiment as having two elements. Mm-hmm. One element being a subjective somatic experience, mm-hmm. and the other element being an image. Like for instance, if you say this person is the embodiment of beauty, mm-hmm. then there is an image in there and the person conforms to that image. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a difference between somatic experience and embodiment, because embodiment, in my definition, always has an image in it. And then I will have to explain to you what I mean by an image. But
yeah, please, go ahead.
Well, I take my notions of consciousness from dreaming. Mm-hmm. I start out with dreaming. Usually we take our notions of consciousness from waking, but I do it from dreaming. Mm. And so we're going the other direction. We're coming from exactly the opposite direction as waking. In dreaming, an image is a place where you find yourself. It's an environment. So if you have a dream that you're walking down the street, then there is a street there. There is a whole universe there that you are inside of. Mm-hmm. So as a phenomenologist, so somebody who studies experience, because that is my interest is in experience, mm-hmm. The way that we experience images is as an environment. And therefore, I think that in a state of embodiment, you're always in an image environment. So for instance, if you are if you are skiing, for instance, and you have to make a jump, and you do your imagining of the jump, you can feel it throughout your body, but there's also the image of the jump that is in it. So that is a fully embodied image, because you're both inside an image and you are inside your body. So those mm-hmm. are the two elements.
That's great. And you said, I saw this, I'm going to read you this quote I saw on the website about this kind of work that I call embodied imagination. You can just as well do with memories or symptoms. It's just that you start with dreaming.
Yes. Well, dreaming is my paradigm. Mm-hmm. So you can start it with any image. You can start it with memory images or with body images or with any kind of image.
That's great. And so would you say a symptom is an image also?
Not necessarily. A symptom is first and foremost a somatic experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about symptoms that you can feel, right? Not somebody who has cancer that they cannot feel. I don't talk about that because there is no experience of it. I talk about symptoms here that you can experience.
Yeah.
It is as such a somatic experience. Then as we get into it, it becomes an embodied experience because you begin to feel inside of it and it begins to surround you. And as it begins to surround you, it becomes an image like a dream. And then you find yourself inside of the symptom. And then as you find yourself inside of the symptom and it begins to surround you, then it's fully embodied because then there is image plus somatic experience.
So I'm familiar with at least my own interpretation of what you mean by subjective somatic experiencing, but in case listeners aren't, would you unpack what you mean by that?
Yes. This comes from my field, which is phenomenology, the science and study of experience, that there are two kinds of body. There is the body object or the objective body, which is the one that the surgeon gets to deal with and that most of science is studying. And then there is the subjective body. That is not where you have a body, but where you are a body. Yeah. And in that subjective body, we experience things. We experience this subjective body. And that is a somatic experience of the body.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. I'm just dropping into noticing that in my experience right in this moment.
That you're dropping in. Yeah, and as you're dropping in, that is an embodied experience because you're both in the image of dropping in, because dropping in is an image, and in the somatic experience of a lowering of awareness, in a lowering of physical awareness. Well, you can describe it better. Just you describe what you mean by dropping in. What is the somatic experience of that?
Well, I guess what I noticed was I was, there's a certain way that I actually can appreciate sometimes of being sort of enchanted with language, but not really connected with my living bodily experience. And I like to keep including more and more my subjective somatic experiencing. So as I was listening to you, I just sort of shut my eyes for a moment and started feeling inside my belly and my chest and just how the language is resonating at that level.
Yes, well, that's a beautiful example because the resonating of the language is the image, and your somatic experience is a dropping into your lower torso. And so that's what I'm always looking for. I'm always looking with everything that I'm doing for that combination of image and somatic experience.
I like that. It's beautiful. Would you be willing to talk a little bit about the MQ as opposed to the IQ? I'm very curious to hear about this.
Yes. IQ, we are all familiar with. IQ is rational intelligence. It's what's been valued in Western society since the 17th century. We have developed it more and more. We've gone through what was called the Enlightenment, and in the Enlightenment, the rational intelligence became more and more important. We started measuring it in about the 20th century, and in the 20th century, we found particular intelligence quotient, which is the way that the level of rational intelligence that a person has. Then later on, we got also to the notion of EQ, that is emotional intelligence. So that's the ability of a person to empathize with other people, to feel other people, to sense what's going on with other people. That is emotional intelligence. And I've been using for many years this notion of embodied intelligence because it's very different. And again, I'm starting with dreaming. And if you look at a dream, then you can see that there are several states of consciousness, states of embodiment going on at the same time. I always take the example of somebody who's being chased by a dog. Mm-hmm. The person who runs away has a very different experience than the dog who's chasing, mm-hmm. because the person who's running away is in a state of fear and breathing very rapidly, like, and the dog may be growling and something happening in the jaw of the dog. Now, as you feel the whole dream and you feel both the fear experience and the experience of the dog in the jaws, you have two different locations of embodied awareness going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. Now, embodied intelligence is the ability to hold various embodied states simultaneously. The more you have that ability, the more you can hold conflicting embodied states simultaneously, the greater your embodied intelligence, the higher your MQ. Mm-hmm. Because what happens if you hold a variety of embodied states simultaneously is what we call an emergent phenomenon, something that starts to come out of that complexity of embodied experience that is a fresh, new experience. And that's intelligence, because that is a new intelligence that arises from holding, containing, opposing experiences or contrasting experience. The first one to bring that in, of course, was C.G. Jung when he talked about the transcendent function. He said that if you hold opposing forces long enough in your body, if you hold them long enough in your body and in consciousness, in embodied consciousness, then something new begins to emerge, which is the transcendent function. Now, we found that it doesn't only work with polarities, it also works with multiplicities. So if you hold 3 or 4 states at the same time, then out of that something new begins to emerge, which complexity theory calls the emergent phenomenon. So that's what I see as embodied intelligence, MQ.
It's beautiful. It reminds me, and I'm not going to get the line exactly right, but from Rilke about being, taking your opposing viewpoints and stretching them wide, because inside the human being is where God learns.
Right. Oh, that's a beautiful statement. Yeah.
Emergent phenomena, inside the stretch. Mm-hmm. So,
and it's becoming more and more important, of course, because we're becoming more and more divided with us and them. And the more that happens, the lower the embodied intelligence. Because if you see everything bad happening in them and everything good happening in us, that is a very low level of embodied intelligence, because you're only feeling one state.
Yeah, I was going to go right there, and how it's useful. Clearly there's that sense of polarity growing culturally, and
well, it's useful also because it contains something that it has something that is vastly different from rational intelligence. Mm. With rational intelligence, we use the mind and our ability to abstract. Mm-hmm. With embodied intelligence, we are using our ability to mimic. And by mimicking other, we slowly begin to feel the way that other exists in the world, and we begin to become part of other, we participate in other. And that is through mimicking. And the art of mimicry, the art of what they call mimesis, what has been called mimesis for thousands of years, is the first thing we learn, because if you have children, the baby and the mother are in a symbiotic state where the communication is through mimicking. Mm-hmm. Mother mimics baby, baby mimics mother, and in that mimicking, there's intelligence happening. And that mimicking is part of embodied intelligence. And then also how one event mimics another is the seeing of analogs. And so one of the things that happens with embodied intelligence is that it's analog intelligence. Mm. And whereas IQ is mainly digital intelligence, different from analog intelligence.
I really like that language about it. That's great. So I'm curious, imagining, again, someone's listening right now and thinking about polarity around political stuff, or,
Yes.
we have this situation happening at the border. And I just saw a little article on NPR this morning about radically different framing of, we're being invaded by, immigrants who have no respect for the law, or these are, parents and children suffering and seeking asylum, and we're attacking them, and just completely different. So
right.
That.
So with embodied intelligence, or did I interrupt you?
Well, I was just going to ask, in you're talking about mimicry, I have a vague sense of, I'm not 100% sure how to do that. So yeah.
Okay. Now, let me say first, I am not a great admirer of our president. I have to start with saying that. So thereby I have my position.
Yeah.
The position I most easily identify with is the position of the one who says these are families that are trying to come up north because they're being persecuted in their own country. I'm a Jew born in 1948. My grandparents fled Germany to the United States and were accepted in the United States. And the reason that they were alive and that I'm alive is that the United States accepted them. So this is something that I very easily identify with. So my job with my embodied intelligence is to feel what it is like to approach them as invaders, to see them as people that are attacking our country, the sense of our country, the sense of our earth. That sense doesn't come naturally to me. And so therefore I will have to learn to sense that, not that I have to approve of it. It has nothing to do with approving or liking it or anything. It is the ability to sense it by way of mimesis, to feel into their shoes. And then it's no longer them. It becomes an archetypal experience. It becomes an experience that exists and has existed for thousands of years, namely the conflict between the ones that come in and the ones that are already there. And so what is being used is the language of the Roman Empire, of the barbarian hordes that are invading, which happened in around the 5th century. And that language is being used again. So we're in a language that has existed for close to 2,000 years.
And then what happens for you in your experience when you take that on?
Well, then after doing that, and after feeling that, and after feeling threatened by what comes in from outside, by feeling my xenophobia, because xenophobia is something that we all begin to experience at 11 months. Anybody who's had a child knows that around 11 months you begin to get stranger anxiety. And so the stranger anxiety is built into the system, and it's probably part of ego formation. I don't quite know, but I think that. And so that I can feel my own xenophobia and my own moments when I don't want other to come in, where I shield myself from other. And then at the same time feel my learning from the presence of other. And as if I can feel that in my body at the same time, something new begins to emerge, which has something to do with accepting the experience of all sides, still taking sides, because I'm going to take sides, absolutely. But being able to participate in the experience from all sides makes my taking side less toxic.
In your own experience, or in interactions with, say, people?
In my own experience, in my interactions with people who are of the quote-unquote opposing camp. Because I can now feel what they're feeling. I disagree with what they want to do about their feelings, but I can feel what they're feeling. So
can I express something that's happening for me as I'm kind of feeling into what you're saying is I just notice how do I want to say it? I share your your side taking, I come from the same perspective or a similar one. And there's something when I think about taking sides, like already there's it's like a big agitation in my body. It's still there from seeing that on the news yesterday.
Yeah.
And in what we just kind of whizzed through pretty quickly, talking about all the way back to, Roman Empire and this language of fearing who's coming in, and taking that on even for a moment, which I feel like I almost might need more time to do, slowing down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the main things about, of course, embodied intelligence is that you need to slow down.
Yeah.
You can't do embodied intelligence fast. Mind is the ability to go fast.
Right.
The embodiment goes slow.
Yes, I feel that. So as I'm, resonating, I'll say again, or intending to with that perspective. And then when you came around and said, and still I take sides, what I notice in my body is that I also have that still taking sides, but it feels there's less tension around it.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I feel my shoulders are a little softer, my back is a little less clenchy about the side. It's like it's a more coming from wholeness instead of polarity.
Yes, and it is also the misunderstanding that people have that when you experience empathically by way of mimesis, by way of imitation, and by participating, you can no longer have judgment. But that's not true. I think that judgment is a different thing than participating by way of mimesis. I can still condemn it. I can still condemn it with my whole body. I condemn this kind of action that is taking place, but I can feel where the action comes from. I can feel it. So my condemnation will be less fierce and more with a sense that I can communicate about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a grounded clarity and not just a hot reactivity about it. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, I have so many questions I could ask you. I'm gonna take a swerve and we'll see if this how this relates. So I'm really curious about dreams, and I know you've been deep in that realm.
Yes.
And I have done some exploration, and I'm thinking of two things. One mentor person I've worked with who really has an understanding of dreams. Well, actually, several people have offered this lately about being dreamt instead of me dreaming. I'm the one who was given this dream, and that often it's not necessarily about my own psychology. But it's a communication sort of almost for the community through this location. How does that resonate with you about being dreamt?
I totally agree. That's the experience, because if you look at it phenomenologically, you are inside of a dream, and inside of that dream, there is a whole real world that is created around you, and you are just as much being dreamt as the person that you meet in the street or the dog that is chasing you, because your physical body is lying in bed. So you are being dreamt. That is an objective phenomenological experience. That's how it is. But the sense of that it is for the world, I do not know. There are people that say that. I think that it's an interesting perspective, but it's a perspective outside of dreaming. So I know nothing about dreaming. I just know that we are being dreamt because that's the experience of it, that we are in an environment that is just as much animated as I am, in the sense of animation, of Disney animation or Pixar. And so everything is in a state of animation around me. I'm in a state of animation, and everything around me is in a state of animation. For the rest, I do not know anything, because If you wake up in science, in the science laboratory, you may say, well, this is all washing of the brain, or it's a learning activity that is going on. Or if you're a psychologist, then you may say it's about me and it's about my personality. If you wake up in China, then it may be it's a prediction of the future. If you wake up in Aboriginal Australia, then it may be an event that needs to be told to your tribe so that your mob can start dancing so the mountains don't lose their memory. There are thousands of possibilities, as many as there are cultures. So the thing that I am interested in is only the experience of dreaming. Beyond that, I know nothing.
That's interesting. Well,
it comes from the fact that I work all over the world. So if I have a particular perspective of what dreams are, I cannot work everywhere anymore. What I can work everywhere if I am staying with the experience and help people get back into the experience and experience it from the various different perspectives that are given in the dream.
I'm just thinking it's interesting. I'm having sometimes had my own experience in hearing other people's dreams, almost like a myth or a story or something, you know? Yeah.
And so you go, there are memes, right? These days we call them memes. There are memes, and they are building blocks of the human imagination. They come up all the time. Now we see them all over the internet. There are basic building blocks like atoms in the imagination. There are basic structures in the imagination that come up in all kinds of different forms. So when you begin to look at an image, then you can see structures in them. When you go deeper into them, you see structures in them that are collectively human. And those we call myths.
So I have another question. I'm going to take us another subject jump and swerve, but I'm very curious about how alchemy relates to this. Embodiment or dreaming.
Well, the interesting switch that took place when alchemy became chemistry, and of course you have to realize that in the 17th century the great chemists were also alchemists, and the great physicists were alchemists like Isaac Newton and Robert Boyle. They were great alchemists. But what happened at the time is that a shift was beginning to take place from the world as a fully animated presence, where everything is animated, where everything is alive, where everything is biology, to a world where there is a subjectivity, a single subjectivity, and extension that is not particularly alive. It's extension. This comes from Descartes, who says that there is a cogito, that which I think, and then that's my subjectivity, my subjective responses, and then there is the objective world out there. That did not exist in alchemy. In alchemy, everything is alive, and so that it's a communication between the alchemist and the material. The material is just as much alive as dream images are alive, as dreaming is alive. So as we begin to look at it from the perspective that this is something that is happening in the substances, this is something that is happening in the material, we are taking it out of the personal, that this is all happening in me, but that since I am matter, since I am live matter, it's happening in the depth of my material, in the depth of my being. And that alchemy therefore gives us images for the depths of our being, and we can see, when we look alchemically at the world, we can see that the world around us is fully animated and fully alive. So alchemy gives us a sense that we are living in a world that is vibrantly alive.
I recently heard someone speaking David Abrams.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how I have an experience of this, but I had never heard it framed so explicitly, really related to what you're saying, which is to be embodied is animism.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an experience of that. The more I come into the intelligence of embodiment and not just relationship with the body as an object,
Right.
the more obvious it is that we're on a living earth and the plants and everything, animism sort of is. And I was recently sharing that with some students in a class, and one woman I appreciate her candor, just said, I hear you, like philosophically, I relate to that, and I have no experience of that.
Well, there is a problem with the notion of animism, of course. Animism is a 19th century notion that comes with the same idea of projection and is basically still the notion that there is a subjectivity and an extension, and that the subjectivity is projected onto the world. Mm-hmm. And so the way that that is being seen in the when the word animism was being used for the first time in the 19th century, is that the so-called primitives had subjective experiences that they saw in the objective world. So it is still a notion of a subject projecting on an object. I think that actually what is happening is that the world itself is vibrantly alive and that we are participating in the life of the world. Yeah. That is, I think, a more accurate description of what happens when you get into the alchemical state. Because it's very important what kind of lenses you use. The lens of animism and the lens of projection is still a Cartesian lens. It's a lens of that there's a subjectivity inside of us that we're projecting on the world outside, instead of that there is an interaction between living entities.
It's so interesting. I wasn't aware of the history of that word, and what I mean when I say it is different than more like what you're describing. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you mean it?
It doesn't feel like a projection from subjectivity, but a connectedness and what do I want to say? Well, I can give an example of the trees in my front yard, my catalpa and maple and nectarine that are out front. And the more I become embodied, the less objectified my relationship with them is. It's almost, there's a sense of aliveness, and I'm not sure I like the word sovereign beingness, but just a recognition of life.
Yes, that we are part of, that we are participants in the same ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And so that ecosystemic notion of animation all around us is slightly different. I wouldn't use the word animism for that, because animism comes with so much baggage that that if you start that conversation, you get back into a 19th century discussion, which is 200 years ago. It gets kind of boring.
It's so interesting to discover, continually learning more about the roots of language.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
Good.
Yeah, thanks. I wonder if you would, I know you have this class coming up through the Zoom platform that's called Going Out of Your Mind. Is that right?
Yes.
Going Out of Your Mind, yeah. And I wonder if you can say a little bit about how you do that, or what invite us into it,
Well, I think that the moment that you get into that state that you're talking about, that the trees in your backyard are living presences, and that you belong to the same ecosystem, and that you can participate in their aliveness. And when that starts expanding to your car, because your car, you can feel your car is a presence. When it extends to your phone, when it begins to extend to things in the world, actually your mind gets blown. Mm-hmm. Because your mind tells you that these are separate objects that have no life to them. But as you begin to experience them, and as they begin to talk back to you, that talking back is a mind-blowing experience. That's why many people don't want to go there. And the other meaning of going out of your mind is, which mind do we go out of? And the mind that I'm trying to help you to go out of is this rational mind. Not that I want you to lose your rationality, because rationality is really, really, really important. We can't do without rationality, and the world cannot be governed without rationality, although it often is. But I want to get out of this notion that we got locked into in the 17th century of that there is a mind and there is a body, or there is spirit and there is matter. I want to get into a world in which the imagination, the embodied imagination, is just as real as the physical body and as the abstract mind. And that thereby going into this embodied imagination and feel this as a reality, we get into a world that exists in between body and mind, and then we lose that body-mind conundrum, and we are in a world that is fully alive in both mind and spirit and body, and where imagination is real. And that this is basically a return to the way that Western culture was up until the 12th, 13th century. So I'm trying to help you get back to that mind as it existed before it became slowly entirely rationalized.
Would you be willing to guide a short invitation so we could experience it right in this moment?
Sure. And for that, I need you to take a memory. And so as you search for a memory, take a childhood memory, for instance, and don't take a traumatic memory, because they will lead you into different directions that frequently become uncontrollable. So take an ordinary memory.
Okay.
And I will help you to feel your body. I will do a very simple countdown. And I count down from 10 to 0, and slowly you sink down through your body until you're at the soles of your feet. And then I will ask you to step into that world of the memory. And then I will help you to move around in that world so that it reestablishes itself. So now place your awareness in the crown of your head. And by the way, if somebody listens to this in the car, don't do this in the car.
Okay.
Very important. So your awareness is in the crown of your head, and you slowly begin to sense, as your awareness sinks down through your body, how every level of your body has its own experience. So you feel your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your jaws, etc. 9. Keep going down slowly. Don't forget your arms. 8. Keep moving down. Explore your torso. What's going on inside your torso? This is all about somatic experiencing. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. 0. Now all your awareness is in the soles of your feet. Now you feel the soles of your feet and the crown of your head and everything in between. Your whole body in one fell swoop. This is your intelligent instrument. And now place yourself in the memory you've chosen. Are you inside or outside? What is the light like? Can you hear anything? Can you smell anything? Is there a part of your body that is touching the environment? Like if you're standing, your feet, if you're sitting, your bum, if you're lying down, your back. Feel the part of your body that is touching something else. Feel into that part of your body. And feel that you're in an environment and the environment surrounds you. You're inside this memory. It surrounds you from all sides. Be aware of what's above you, what's below you. Feel your body in this world. Feel how tall you are. Feel your perspective, sense your perspective in this world. Look around, hear, taste, smell. Be present in this world. Is there anything in this world that you notice? What is happening here? What is happening around you? How are you part of what is happening around you? Feel your body. Feel what's happening inside your body as you're participating in this world where this is happening. Feel what it is like for you to participate in this world surrounding you from all sides. And just feel what happens in your body, your emotions, sensations, and see if there's a place in your body that's particularly sensitive to what's happening to you. And focus on that place in your body. Feel what's happening and let any emotion that wants to emerge right now, just let it come up. Keep feeling the place in your body that's most aware of what is happening to you in this environment where this is occurring, in this light, with these sounds, touch. All your senses are involved. Now I'll count back up from 1 to 10, and you begin to take everything with you to the surface, out of the image into waking consciousness. 1, take it with you. 2, all your memories of this image, of this memory, everything that's emerged. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. So this is one exercise. I'm doing several of these exercises, not just from your perspective, but also from the perspective of your tree in the backyard, and from the perspective of several trees at the same time, from the perspective of the grass, from the perspective of anything that exists in that image. And then they will start, these substances like alchemy will start to interact. But this was just one perspective.
So beautiful. I was with a memory of swimming, and I feel so kind of cool and refreshed right now.
Good.
It's beautiful. That last thing you said, I was with you, and I'm, minimally familiar with alchemy and fascinated by it. But when you said, in the trees perspective and the grass and multiple trees at the same time, and then what was it you said about the elements of alchemy will start to be alive in your experience? Can you say a little more about that?
Because what happens if you look at it from the perspective of the tree, that is a substance, or that is the material of your environment. This is an embodied environment. So it's an embodied piece of material, the tree. And as you begin to participate in the life of the tree, then that material comes to life. Now, it is different from your material as the one standing in your backyard. You're looking at the tree, and it's different from the grass below you, but everything is in a state of animation. So you can take any perspective, and as you take these various perspectives, and through embodied intelligence, MQ, you hold them all at the same time, something new will start to emerge that is actually an alchemical sense of the whole environment, of the whole ecosystem, and you begin to feel the presence of the whole ecosystem. In Japan, you call that En, and En is the notion that when you are experiencing something, the presence of the bird is just as important as the presence of the car, is just as important as the presence of the bicyclist, is just as important as the light. Everything together makes for this, what the Japanese call the En. And so it is the spirit of the moment. And we used to have a word for that in antiquity. It was called the kairos. The kairos is the spirit of the moment. So I help you to get into that spirit of the moment and get a much larger perspective that you can feel in all kinds of different places in your body, and then something new will start to emerge. That's how I teach embodied intelligence.
In doing practices like this frequently, besides just what emerges, then I could imagine this would really change the way you experience walking through the world on a given day.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea. In the end, what happens is that you're in a much greater sense of communication with the world, and not just the quote unquote natural world, but also the technological world, also your car and your iPhone, and in the future, your virtual reality rig, and all the kind of things that are happening that is the future of technology, and how we can get an embodied relationship with this technology. And this is especially important for young people, and it's especially important for people who are creating this world, the people who are programming this world. If you get into more of a sense that these are living realities, then you stop living in the world that we are living in now, which is a world where we are living on a tiny little planet that is basically a stone that goes around the sun, that is part of an insignificant solar system, that is part of an arm of an insignificant galaxy, that is part of an insignificant group of gigantic galaxies, that is part of a universe that in itself has zero meaning. So you get out of that state, because that's the state that we're in. You can say that you're not, but you're being brought, because that's what rational consciousness does. This is the rational world. And so that is also a world that is greatly impoverished. And so that's why I am part of this movement of bringing back the living imagination, the imagination as reality, that we don't have to begin to hallucinate a world, but that we are in a world that is imaginative and that imagines with us, and we imagine with the world. And then you go out of your mind, because then you're out of the mindset in which you live basically in a meaningless heap of stones.
It feels so creative and healing, like, just the difference of, the militaristic language we even use about in environmentalism or fighting climate change or something like that,
or fighting your illness,
right? And
instead of being inside the illness, being surrounded by the illness, and feeling that there's a communication that can be set up with living being, and that we are living beings going through this. The cancer just as much as habitual consciousness. I'm trying to help people to get out of habitual consciousness. Habitual consciousness we both need, because you couldn't drive a car, you couldn't pay your taxes. But habitual consciousness we need, but it's also our prison. And so I'm trying to go for a prison break.
It feels so important in the world at this time to grow that kind of intelligence. So thank
That's
you.
what I think, yeah.
You do. Yeah, it just feels very relevant to everything.
Well, I'm glad you get it. See, that's very surprising, by the way, is when I started to talk like this, I have been working in this field for 47 years. Yeah. And when I started talking about this in the 70s, there were not many people who got what I was talking about. And also because I wasn't clear about what I was talking about. But as I became more clear, also, there is a different attitude that's going around. I was president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, so we are looking at dreams and the way people look at dreams. Now, 30 years ago, when you talked about a dream with a person, people would immediately start interpreting it. And they would immediately tell you what it means. Yes. And that has gone away almost totally. People no longer ask you, what does it mean? People are much more interested in what is the experience. Go into the experience. What did I experience, and what can I learn from my experiences? So there is a vast change that's been going on over the last 40 years that I have been noticing and I have been part of. And I think that it's very surprising that these days people, especially of that generation that is now called the millennials, that people of that generation really get it. And of course, it's really important to them because they will be living in a world of virtuality. They're already living in a world of virtuality, and that gets an enormous bum rap that there are 5 people sitting at a table and everybody's looking at their phone and texting. But that's actually living in a virtual world. They are living in that virtual world, and let's not be against it. Let's see, what is that? What is living in a virtual world like? And they will live increasingly in this virtual world. And so and that virtual world will become more and more like a dream. And so what can we learn from dreaming as our technology moves closer and closer to dreaming? As you may know, from 1895 till 1900, when films just began, when the brothers Lumiere just began to make films and project them on the screen, from 1895 till 1905, the majority of titles of movies had the word dream in the title. So since the late 19th century, we've been moving closer and closer to dreaming. So therefore, I think that for this new generation, it is really important to begin to understand dreaming, because that's what they're moving towards.
I really appreciate the way you're breaking down this sort of construction of a binary between, nature and connecting with that.
Oh, yes. Oh, God.
Your car and your phone and your computer, and just, I feel a similar kind of softening through my body, like I felt when you were.
Well, it is speaking even neuroscientifically, it's nonsense, because if you drive your car, your body image extends to the size of your car. Otherwise, you couldn't go through narrow spaces. You would know exactly with your body the size of your car.
Right.
And so your whole awareness is expanded throughout that car. That means that that car is a living presence that you live with, and that actually is your way of moving through the world. So we are already in hybrid presences, and this hybridity will just continue. The person sitting at the table with their iPhone or with their phones, and 5 people being on different text messages, they live in a hybrid world. This hybridity is going to continue, and it's going to get stronger.
Yeah. So it feels like the necessity of the image that's coming right now is something like having an anchor or roots in embodied intelligence.
Absolutely.
It can get so fast and speedy and up in the head, moving very fast.
Yes, right.
So yeah, I love that invitation. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope that people go to the Jung platform, that is Jung platform, Jung, platform.com, and look at this course, because what you can, I've been teaching on the Jung platform for a long time, and what you can see is that what I'm trying to do is to help you through exercises and through blowing your mind to get into a new state of mind that is more practical, that is more useful, and that makes the world around you much more animated.
How wonderful. And when does your class begin?
Well, the introductory class has already happened, so that's for free. So you can get that at jungplatform.com, and then you can check it out. And on December 13th, in the United States, December 13th, in Australia, December 14th, we are starting with the course itself, the course past the introductory lecture. So the introductory lecture is for free. If you want to really access that, then just go to jungplatform.com and find that introductory lecture and see if it interests you.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. I so appreciate your time, and I'm really delighted to discover your work. And thank you so much.
Well, Erin, this was a great interview. I'm so happy because you get it all and you can feel it with your body. That's the most what I can hope for.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you enjoy this podcast, it's great if you want to share it with friends or post about it on social media. Also, you could make a donation to support the podcast or find out more information about our classes and offerings at our website, embodimentmatters.com.